So let's get our recording started already. Great, we're good to go. And good, PowerPoint is starting now. Okay, so again, so today our goal is to kind of do an overview, get you started, get it downloaded, talk about what it currently does and the future of where rCloud is headed, how to make connections on whatever device you could be using, and also kind of the concepts of the future devices that are coming very, very soon. And of course, what are the costs that go along with that? If you do have any questions to follow up or any issues while you're using rCloud, this is the email you'd want to use, rcloud@retrotec.com. You do not have to capitalize the C. We just kind of use it as an icon feature. So if you do have any questions or feedback, please make sure you include the version, what type of device you're using, what were maybe some of the issues, or anything else you want to describe as a feature or something. The more information you provide, the easier it is for the support team to kind of help you or guide along what kind of issues you might be having. So these are the requirements in order to use rCloud, and make sure we're on the same page. So what rCloud is an app that's designed to do automated testing of a blower door or duct tester. It will geolocate your location, time, date, stamp where the person stood when they were doing the test. It can also go on and connect with third-party apps like things that tell you about the house location, maybe the history of the house, the size of the house, and also your local weather can also be entered into the app automatically. It will then perform the type of test you've requested without doing any kind of data entry. So it now has data that can then be uploaded immediately when the test is done. It's secure data, or it can also be shared. So your goal is before I leave the house, I can actually upload and do everything that rCloud can offer. It also works if you're offline. So we're going to go through some of those different options that you can always do the test. Whether or not you can share the data immediately depends on what type of internet connection you have with your devices. So these are the requirements for today, and these actually will be changing rapidly. We just recently released an in-house beta version for Android, and Apple is coming. So our prediction is by the end of the year, anything you have, for the most part, you'll be able to use. Windows phones is a whole nother animal that we have not been able to conquer. So, but you will be able to use a Windows tablet. So as of today, you need a DM32 smart gauge that has Wi-Fi enabled. You need to set up an rCloud account, which we're going to talk about today. And then you can use a PC, a regular old PC, as long as it has the ability to do Wi-Fi. So sometimes desktops don't do that. And you need to be able to be running 8.1 or Windows 10 on your tablet or PC that you have. So again, as I mentioned, coming soon. We described it as late summer because it's just a safe time to put in there. Whether or not we'll be able to conquer this, I feel we'll be ahead of the schedule is what we're after. So the Android version that we're now playing with looks very similar and is moving very strong. And Apple is a very stable program. Way to program on new devices. So we feel that we should definitely be able to reach this. We're hoping for even sometime early in August to actually have this. So late summer is what we're technically saying. So if you have these other devices, then clearly you can hold tight because we'll be having them out soon. But you can play with it because most of the folks out there have a PC in some form or another that you can actually begin to use this and at least set up your account ahead of time. So here's my first question that I need, and I don't do the official polls because there's too many here to answer. But what I'm looking for is one is, are you interested in being a beta tester for some of these other devices? All right, and what kind of devices do you have? So if you have Android, if you could tell us a tablet and as best you could, what kind of tablet or Android phone, or if you're an Apple user, if you have an iPad, they have many versions now, or an iPhone, whether it's 5 or 6 or 6S. So if you can tell us what kind of devices you've got, this is very helpful for us just to kind of get a feel for what the people that are tuning into this have, and let us know, yes, I would like to be a beta tester, and this is the device I have. Just fill that in on the questions panel, and we'll keep track of that and follow up with what you give us. So if anybody's interested in that, let us know. Okay, so basically we're going to start with how to download and install the rCloud app. So my next question is for anybody out there: is anybody already using rCloud? If so, let me say yes, I'm using it. And obviously, you're either on a tablet or a PC. Then that gives me an idea about what your we can get some feedback from those who are actually using it live. Um, so again, if you are using it, just say yes, I am currently an rCloud user, and that gives us an indication to who's on here as to being brand new to rCloud or uh, somebody who needs to learn how to install it. So you're going to download rCloud directly currently from the Microsoft Store. Again, obviously, once we get Android and Apple up, you'll go to those stores directly to download that app. Because there are so many apps on the Microsoft Store, the easiest thing to do would be to search for Retrotec or rCloud. It's easier to search for Retrotec than it is for rCloud because a lot of cloud things show up under your search. So again, you'll be able to find it and install it directly into your tablet or PC. And then you also need to make sure you have an rCloud account set up through Retrotec. And the rCloud account, as it says on the thing here, is just really a Retrotec account. You turn on the features that rCloud allows you to do and use. Basically, ultimately, it'll be a billing feature, and you'll be able to see all of your tests and everything online. So many people have a Retrotec account, and all you need to do is actually activate the rCloud side of that, or you can create a brand new account. So there's several ways to either activate or create a rCloud account, one of which being in the app itself. So if you download the app, it'll ask you, do you have an rCloud account? And if you say no, it'll prompt you to sign up, or you can go to retrotec.com and sign in or get a new Retrotec account, which also will activate your rCloud. So if you option one, if you sign in on the actual device that you got, more designed for a tablet, it says, "Oh yes, I want to create an account," and basically it will open up a browser and take you to rCloud and set you up to log in. Same as if you were to do it on your PC. This is just one way to go sign in or log in or create, depending on what device you've got in your hand. So option two is at the very top. You can see you can select log in and sign up. So even if you have an account, you need to log in. It actually requests that you log in every 24 hours. It's one of the security features to make sure people don't stay logged in with their information exposed for too long. Even us who are users or Retrotec people that are constantly there have to do the same thing. So the sign up page, again, you can either use your existing Retrotec account, user, sign in, or create an account. All this is very common stuff that we do with many other accounts that we've had or used. Simple follow the prompts. So if you're an existing user, under edit, it'll have an area down here to determine if your rCloud is active. So if it says no, that means that you have an account, but you've not activated the rCloud side. So you need to edit that and turn that into a yes. And at the bottom, if you're at the bottom here, it says here's where you use rCloud is to activate that account side that's on there. So if you're creating a new one, it's going to ask you for your password, first name, last name, all the basic stuff that we do to create an account. And then again, you see at the bottom there, it says, do you want to activate rCloud? So if you log in and want to check your status under edit, you should see under rCloud, it should say yes, as in it is active. So again, whether you are an existing user with retrotec.com or you create a brand new account, this box must be checked in order to use that. Okay, so when you are logged in, you went and logged in on your account online. This is one of the things you can do. So there's things you can do that are part of the web portal in terms of activating your account, seeing your tests, all right? And in the upper left corner, there's a little icon there that'll say rCloud with the rCloud icon, and you can access your account through that, or you can access it through the top area where you probably logged in the beginning. Any questions about that? Anybody have an rCloud account already, but just really not using it? Just trying to get feedback on how the process is working for folks. Someone asked, will there ever be available for Apple products, meaning Apple, as I'm sure you're probably referring to Mac as in the computer. And I can say I'm a Mac user. I'm now presenting to you on my Mac. And it is just not something that is, for the amount of time that has to be put into that, for the amount of users, it has just not been considered viable at this point. So it will be able to be, again, in the future, to use the iPad or your iPhone, but using your Mac computer is just something that will be difficult to integrate. And most people are going to use their phone, is what I feel, in the future to use this kind of a product. You can't access all of the data through your web portal through your Mac, whether you use Safari, Firefox, or Chrome or something. You can access all of this data. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the features of what rCloud does and where we'll probably head to in the future. So the first time you actually activate the rCloud app on a tablet or something similar, again, this feature will be a variety of different options. So for right now, this is your considered the home page or the main page, and you have no data or any other tests that are on here, so there's nothing to load up. So it tells you there's no tests found, and you can add equipment, which means you're going to add the different types of gauges or fans that you have. In general, mostly just be fans and any kind of addresses that will ultimately stay in your account that you may use frequently. So you can create a new test, add equipment. Some of this can be done during the process. If you don't really want to add your equipment immediately, you can do that in the middle of your test also. So here is your individual rCloud account. And the reason that you have an rCloud account is so that you can keep your fans or common addresses that you may need in your account. So when you sign in under Joe Tester or Joe your name or whatever your account is under, then all the things that you use as a daily user will be there. So if your tablet goes down or you switch between tablets and phones, you can literally just log in. All of the devices and things that you keep and your data on all your tests will always be there for you. So you could have a company-wide account. Let's say that we have, ABC testing, blower door, duct testing group, and that company can have one account, and they can have multiple users. So they could have Joe Tester and Chris Tester and John Tester and Karen Tester. Each one of them will have their own account with commonly maybe the fans they use, maybe everybody shares fans, so they would all be in their individual accounts. And the my addresses are things that you would save. So if we're commonly going to a location, I may save that address so it's always in there, or I can access it easily. Our goal is that you can also in the future to be able to put an address in on your web portal, which means somebody at the office can enter an address and you refresh your page and new addresses can show up. So you kind of get what am I going to do today as terms of my testing? I can actually select those and apply those of what I may be doing as my daily activities. Okay, so this is the basic page. To be honest, most people don't visit this page very often. Once you add your fans and stuff, it doesn't really change much. And your fans actually keep track of your serial number, the model number. So for my account, I probably have got like 6 different fans that I use or differently play with or do beta testing on. So we went back to the home page, and now you can see that my options are that I've done a few tests. Currently, I have 6 locations that I have on here. One of which is if you see the details, the second row is each has 3 tests, and the bottom one has got 9 tests. So that isn't just how many tests I've done, but the individual locations. And there's several things you can do from this main page here. So I can create a new test, which we're going to step through. I can also just tap on an existing address and see all the tests that are there. Or I can hit the plus button that's inside each one of these maps and just begin to do a new test at that location. So what I did was go back to the previous slide here. So on the previous slide, I'm just going to tap on any one of these map icons. And on the next page, you can see that I picked one from the middle row because I have 3 tests that I've done at this location. So I have a single point blower door test, and I've got 2 duct tests that I've done. And these are all for this individual address. And I can tap on any one of these now and actually see the report. Okay, so if I do the create a new test, or again, I can hit the plus button to do a new test at that location. All right. So these are my options back on my homepage. All right. So we're going to start with either one of those will take us to this page. It says, what type of test do you want to do? Either we're going to do a blower door or a duct test. I will prompt at the end of some other stuff that we're hoping to add to this rCloud features, which will be really pretty amazing and exciting. So for right now, you can do a blower door or duct test. You can use Energy Conservatory equipment, but you must have the DM32 Wi-Fi gauge. So you must have a Retrotec gauge, but you can still use your Minneapolis blower door or duct blaster to do your test. This rCloud app only communicates with the Retrotec gauge, and the Retrotec gauge communicates with Minneapolis equipment. So you can keep your existing fans and upgrade your gauge to be able to use these type of features. So once you select a standard, so we'll say we did a blower door, and now there's other options of standards that are out there. And these are changing, and soon there will be many more that go along with this. So there's European standards will be added, and make sure we clarify the questions usually happen now is that you really will not be able to have your own individual testing method that you want to do. Like, oh, I want to do this type of testing. Our goal was to have something that was standardized for everybody out there, so that when you completed your test and had a pass-fail criteria, that it was based on a known standard that you actually did your test to. So if there is a standard that's out there that we had not covered, then we can actually add that. But we're looking for things that are already standards in the industry that we can apply with. So right now we have a ResNet standard, and soon that ResNet standard will include the guidelines, and soon the term 380, which will be very familiar for ResNet folks, will be included. The ICC follows the 2009, 12, and the 15 types of requirements, and Title 24 has a whole set of requirements that are similar to ResNet, but not exactly. So if you're whichever one of these standards fits to you, you can select that, and each one of them has various types of different tests. So on the blower door test for ResNet, there's a single point, repeated single point, and multi-point. Soon this will really just be following the 380 standard, and be guiding you as whether you're going to do a single point or multi-point type of a test. So our goal is to make sure you understand your standard and guide you through what are your options. So here I'm going to do a ResNet single point, and these are the different current options you have right now if you downloaded rCloud. ResNet has got three options. The ICC, whether you're doing the 2012 or 15. Our next update will include a multi-point test for the ICC if you're using the 2015 code. And Title 24 has got two options, again, the single point or multi-point. And again, we'll be adding European and various other standards as the app grows. This is one of the ones that you can, when you use rCloud, is there. And we are working on this as a way to make rCloud compliance report much more effective for you, especially for the ICC compliance, or if you're doing a ResNet test, which usually isn't a compliance, but you may say, oh, I'm also doing this for code. I need to do both. So blower door or duct test, we're working on a way to actually have a methodology to say, yes, you passed the criteria that you requested on this page. So you can say that I did pass, or I showed up with a failure, that you can actually save in the report or go back and redo the test to find out where your numbers were off and how to redo that test. So if you see this, you may find that it's not exactly what you're looking for. It is in progress, and is our goal as we finish off the other two different systems between Android and Apple to clean up this page to make it very effective for your reports. Okay, so I have two options now. I can either enter my test location. I can actually say I'm at 123 Main Street, or I can just really just say get my location. And two things you'd need in order to do this. So if I'm going to use get my location, then I must have a tablet that is considered 3G or 4G, which means it also can geolocate. Now, there are ways to make a tablet that does not have that feature connect to your phone and actually get a really good result on Get My Location. So that to make sure we understand that, so I can take my phone, which does have a geolocation service built in, and I can share my internet connection with a hotspot to my tablet, and I can say Get My Location, and it actually does a very good job typically of finding your location through your phone and can pinpoint that. So when I do use Get My Location, whether the tablet is already enabled with 4G or I use my phone, um, we have different understandings about what geolocate means. Some people think that it can pinpoint precisely where you're standing. The reality is it usually was within anywhere from 15 to 50 feet, sometimes even a little larger, depending on, again, your connection and how well it's locating you. So um, we use that as a guide in terms of trying to confirm, are you near the location that's part of the address? So it'll say, Get My Location. And it usually enters the city and the state and the zip code automatically. It says, oh, I can tell you're here. But sometimes it doesn't actually have the address, or if you're on a street corner, it's not sure what street this property may be attached to. So you got to check the street name and enter the address. These are common things that go along with geolocation or things that are finding where you're at. It usually will also find my elevation, and if I'm going to use the next series of scenarios, I can also fill in many of the other prompts that are also here. I also have the option to just fill everything in myself. I can actually do not have to use Get My Location, and I can enter all the address information, especially if this is not connected to the to an internet which has a geolocation. Now, the Get My Location did a lot for me. All right, so he actually is able to fill in a lot of information and do things automatically. Sometimes you're going to end up with an error. It just says that, I'm sorry, I cannot confirm that you're anywhere near close enough to something that I could use. So your accuracy may be off, maybe your connection, and maybe a variety of issues. And that can happen actually in urban areas or in out in the rural sections. It happens randomly. It's all the same issues that we have when we're trying to do something online, and we no longer have a connection when we thought we should have. Okay, so when it did find where I'm at, it is able to enter again all this information automatically, and tells me the accuracy. So here I'm actually within 60 meters of where I'm standing. I'm somewhere in this location, and that's a not uncommon find. That's on how accurate it actually pins you down. It also goes and finds the nearest weather station once I'm able to isolate or confirm where I'm at. It says, oh, your wind speed and outside temperature are 4 miles per hour and 61 degrees outside. You can overwrite these if for some reason you're able to measure the wind speed where you stand or check the temperature. Again, all these can be overwritten. The other one that's at the bottom. So one is we're probably going to alter the name so it seems less confusing, but we're still moving on. So at the bottom, it's got a thing that says My Location, and the My Location accesses Zillow to populate a variety of information that's based upon when I enter the street number. So if I'm going to enter 4967 Shiloh Crossing, wherever it's found me, and then My Location can say, hey, guess what? That is an existing home, and I'm able to isolate you and put you down as this is the place where you're at, and I'm going to go find some additional information for you. So it also goes and finds the floor area, year constructed, and again confirms the weather conditions that are out there. You still need to enter a volume for the house because we use that as a blower door number, and we try and get it now so we can keep that data with the house. And you must enter an indoor temperature, because those are things that you cannot find online. So you enter those two fields in order for you to go to the next level. So one of the questions that comes up frequently is, okay, I'm at a brand new house. It's not on a map. It's nowhere to be found. All right. So its address is clearly will not show up on a mapping service, but you can still geolocate where you're standing. It'll just give us a long series of Latin long numbers that later get turned into an address. But if you're doing a brand new construction site, you can still do geolocate, find where I'm at, and it will pinpoint you. But you're definitely going to have to enter all of the information about the address and where you're standing. And later you can confirm how far apart you really were from one to the other. Okay, so once I've got all the information about the location where I'm at, use as many sources as I can based on my connections, or enter the stuff manually. Then my next is to go through and connect to the gauge. And you can see in the red section here that I have nothing connected. This red area tells me what's going on, or what's actually still connected. So if I do back-to-back tests, I'll already stay connected and it will show up what I have in terms of my fan and the gauge. So we're going to tap on the Find Gauges button right here. And that actually opens up another prompt that sends us to a page over on the side that, again, will say, okay, yes, please go find all the gauges that are near me. Usually it's only one, but some people may have two, so your goal is to pick whichever one you have. So this one says, oh, I found this gauge, and it will connect to it. And whatever the gauge has right now on its settings is the fan that will show up in your fan selection. So if you actually had a blower door here, it would show up as the blower door. And I can select it here and as one of my fans. So I say, no, I'm going to do a duct test. I can actually click on the box here and pick the fan that I have. You can also hit Manage Fans. If for some reason you did not enter a fan you want to use, you can do that now. So I can add a blower door, enter the serial number, and the basic information about the fan. Now I'm going to pick the range that I'm going to use on the icons here, same as the gauge. But my goal is to actually use this interface. So once you usually are connected, the gauge gets locked out. So you can't go to the gauge to change these. Your goal is that this interface is now what's controlling your gauge and where all your information is going to come from. Okay, so I found my gauge. It's connected. I have a fan that's connected. I can see over in the red box that I have a gauge and a fan. Everything is good to go. And I can now go to my next screen. And this actually will begin the test. All right. So there's a certain point where there is no return in terms of changing data or other information. So once I begin a test, then I can't go back and change the location. I can't go back and change my address. I can't go back and change that information. I really have to start over, because otherwise you could be altering the data that we're trying to make sure is secure and accurate and unadulterated. So this is on the next screen where it actually will automatically begin to do my test, whether it's a duct test or a blower door. It will prompt you like, okay, are you ready? We can begin. It'll prompt you for a blower door to cover your fan, and then it'll do its baseline, and then it'll prompt you to uncover your fan. So it goes through a lot of the basic guidance to make sure that you have completed some of the tasks correctly. And it's the goal of rCloud to be much more user-friendly and helpful, and give you guides and more pictures to actually make sure as you're doing your test, asking you a few more questions as to make sure you set the house up correctly. So you can see here, so I have a type of test at the top. I'm doing a ResNet blower door test for a single point. I can see my baseline was graphed, and I can see all of my results were just below that. And right now it's in the middle of doing the blower door test, and I can see what my results are, and watch the actual test as it goes by. This is mostly for Windows tablets or Windows PC only. That sometimes you may be doing a test, and it may take, especially if you're doing a multi-point test, it can take a few minutes to do this and do all the different readings that have to happen. So the goal is to make sure that you do not leave the screen. So Windows will disconnect other devices when the app that it's connected to is no longer being the main focus on your device, which means that if I were to leave this rCloud and go to check my mail or go do something else, it'll disconnect your gauge. So when you come back to it, it'll say gauge error, and you really have to start the test over, not the whole process of entering the data, but definitely redo the test. Usually your baseline is saved. You'd have to just redo the blower door test or the duct test. Okay, so if you get this error, then you'll learn to just hang tight and not change your your app focus or whatever app is active, rCloud, while you do the test. Okay, so when it's done, it completed the test, and sometimes it feels as though there's a lot to do, and I will not be deceptive to tell you that using rCloud is faster, okay, because it's not. There's nothing faster than just hooking up the gauge, hitting set pressure, go and get a result, and shut everything down and walk away, because that's clearly the fastest method that you can do. What happened to that data that you just did, if you did that kind of test, is it's written down on a piece of paper. Maybe it's manually entered into another app or something like that. And it's our goal that we alter how the industry gathers this data. That doesn't mean that it's going to be any quicker, but we think this is a better process in terms of making sure the data has been captured correctly, the test was performed correctly, and the data is now secured. It can be used for a variety of other options. So clearly opening up a tablet, finding out where I am, making sure the address is corrected, connect to the gauge and say, go do the test, will take a little longer, especially if you're going to perform a multi-point type of a test. All right. So I just want to make sure it's clear that this is not a time saver. This is a data accurate way of performing the test. And I think our industry deserves something that was much more accurate than pen and paper or guesstimating what we sometimes put down as the numbers and hope that that's what it was done correctly. All right, so with that said, I have my results here in front of me, and this tells me that what my baseline range was. So clearly there was hardly any wind or anything outside. My adjusted house pressure and my CFM flow. And if I had entered a plus minus fail, it would tell me if I passed or failed my criteria that was on here. It tells me what range I used, what the device was. So I have a lot of great information that has now been documented automatically directly through the gauge. If you do not like what you got here as your results, all right, then you can just on the bottom here, you can actually hit retry, just do it again. If I have a major outlier, somebody opened the back door, something else happened during the test, all of my results were clearly on some strange path that was not normal or linearized, then I can just hit retry and it'll just do the test. It'll ask you if you want to keep the baseline, and you can say yes or no and then do the test. Once I hit accept, then I'm able to use that data to either share it, save it, and store it. So the first thing I get to do is I actually get to see the entire report before I actually will upload it to the cloud. And our goal is to, right now, this is the quality assurance report. Our goal is at the top here to tell you if you have a pass fail, that whether you had passed that criteria, what that criteria was, or that no, you had failed that criteria. And all of the report doesn't fit into one page. So the section on the left is what's on the top. The section on the right is what, if I scroll down, I would see that. So the test measurements tell me a variety of information about, what was my fan configuration, what was the device I used, what were my results, what type of test did I do, time averaging, all that kind of stuff is there. And underneath the gauge serial number, there's actually an active link that can connect you to the calibration sheet that has, if you're online or anybody else who reads this report can say, oh, that gauge was still in its calibration, and I can actually see the actual calibration report. So this is a very simplified report about the test. We didn't really feel that you needed a 13-page report about what the test was. So we really felt that it should be a one-page report. And once I have this information, then I can actually store it up on the cloud automatically. And I can actually then see it on individual reports. I can see it on a map. I can share it once I've stored it up on the cloud. I say, okay, yes, I want to keep this. I store it. And it gives you a confirmation, a big thing saying, yes, your test was successfully uploaded. So once it's uploaded, I can go back and select that report and share it with anybody through email. I can share them the link. We'll be able to create a PDF. Anybody back at the office can also now open up the web portal and see that result also. How much, someone asked here, Rick asked, how much data can be stored by each person? There really isn't a limit. The only challenge that comes along with this is you can actually take pictures. I didn't really go into that as one of the features that's on here, but it is on here that I can actually take pictures with the tablet, with my device. I can also have pictures that are in the device. Let's say when I arrived at the house, I took a picture from out front. I may have taken a picture of some other conditions that were inside. Some of that may be used for this report, or maybe used for a more expanded full home audit report. But anything that if I want to have connected with this rCloud report can be added and uploaded when I upload this report. So in terms of the data, in terms of uploading, the more pictures you have, the more data you have to upload. But there is no limit in terms of the amount of data you have in your account or that's stored up on the rCloud server by Retrotec. Okay, so I can do view individual reports on a map. I can also email them or share them in various ways. And all these things will become major significance in terms of how fast, before you leave the job site, you'll be able to confirm if I'm complying with what I need to do, or if somebody back at the office says, no, something's not right, do the test again. So I'm checking here. Somebody asked a question here. So someone says the report just gives numbers, meaning that it only gives my test results from like the blower door or the duct tester, but it doesn't say so much about quality. It's just a number. So most of the things that people are doing are a compliance side. You can actually, there is also on each page, there's a place to enter notes that also get all collected together, and you can actually have notes as to what kind of conditions you may have had at the time or some other issues that had. So so they may have actually the majority of their leakage in one place, he's saying, or still have problems. So the way to show that in a report would be to try to show what your comments were, that the majority of the leakage was occurring at this one location. The goal is that once your notes and your report has been generated, that it cannot be altered. That's really the whole concept behind it. So he asked, can I change that later? And so the only thing you can actually do would be to confirm the test later, or send an email or a report saying that those conditions were corrected. But you do not have access to the report to change any of the data that may have been in there. So there is a place to actually add those kind of notes. So thanks, Glenn. So that you can actually clarify what needs to be done next, or what kind of issues you had, or the door was not secured or something, or a window was broken, but I did the test anyway. All those kind of comments can be put in there, and they show up in your final report altogether. All right, so Cohen also said he does a lot of pre-testing during construction. So depending on your time frame, this could be a major benefit for you. Okay, so this is how the fee structure works for rCloud. Right, that it's $2 for each blower door test and $2 for each duct test. So right now we only have those two types of tests. As other tests come into play, we'll figure out how that fits into a price structure. But for right now, any additional blower door tests or duct tests at the same address and within a 30-day window, those additional tests are free. So, for instance, I do a test on May 12th, and it costs $2 for that blower door test. And on June 10th, I do another blower door test. So let's say I test out, or if I do some pre-testing conditions as the house is being put together, as long as the second test is within less than 30 days, then those additional tests are free. The reason for this is, so if I do a test and I save it and I realize that, wow, my number should have been lower, or something went wrong with that test, that you can do the test again and again, or as many times as you need to within 30-day window, or that same day. Typically, you may do another test or come back a week later to find out that they fixed something. So our goal was the test in and test out process within 30 days are all included for that same test. So it seems it can sound complicated, but it's fairly easy in terms of that I'm able to do, again, multiple of the same test within 30 days, and it's only one price for the first test. So let's try to go through this. So if I started on May 12th, and I've got a couple of houses here, that this is how your bill would look for you at the end of the month, all right, or in your billing cycle. So one of the things that may happen is, let's say that you're billed for June, right, and you did some of these tests, right, and so you would have gotten a bill for it. And if you did additional tests in July, but it was in the 30-day window, they would not be included in your July bill. So there is a monthly bill, and on the back side of that is keeping track of when you did your first test and your second test on whether or not you would get billed again. So if you looked at the house on the left, very similar. We had a minute ago, we did a blower door test, only cost you $2. I did another test within 30 days, and same address was only $2. So if you look over to the far right, we did a bunch of tests at this house while they did a bunch of work. So on May 16th, we did a duct test. I came back a couple days later. We did it again. We did a blower door test about a week later. And on June 12th, we did another blower door test. So out of all those 4 tests, you'll only be charged $2 for a duct test and $2 for a blower door test. So $4 total for that house. So hopefully that makes sense as to that you kind of keep track of your 30-day window if you're going to do multiple tests or test in or test out at a job site. So someone asks, how long will the test be saved online and accessible? All right. So your data is around forever. It's not like, oh, within a year we're going to clear your account. That data is there and it belongs to you or to the owner of that account. So again, maybe a company-wide account, they own that data, right? So you can access your data as long as your account is up to date. So if your credit card failed or you no longer wanted to do this service, that your data was still there, and it's not a major resource to not keep that data. I'm sure if you cancel your account, it will, I guess something we haven't actually resolved, but it'll probably be a time frame of a year or 2 years to say, okay, your account and your test will be deleted due to inactivity or unable to pay for your test for whatever. But as it is now, as long as you have an active account, those can be there. So as you could imagine, what you could look back on in 2, 3, 4, 5 years on a map and see all of your tests and see the type of results you're having and kind of share that with your clients. It will be a great resource to show how active you are and what kind of results you've been able to provide for clients in terms of your blower door or duct tests. Okay, any other questions about billing or the app? So connecting the DM32 to your device, and again, right now it's only a Windows device, but again, the future will change quickly. So I kind of designed this so it's somewhat generic, and as soon as the Apple and Android versions are out, we'll do another webinar update and talk specifically about how to connect to those devices. If you look in your handouts little panel on your control panel, I did give you the manual for rCloud for Windows. It's a PDF version. And I gave you a quick guide on how to connect to routers, but it could be applied to various other connections that we're going to talk about now. So some of the language that's in there that's not specific to that app is applicable to some of the connections we'll be doing. Someone asked about the cost of the DM32, and there is a trade-in program. So if you have a DG700, or if you have an older DM2 from Retrotec, that there's a trade-in program, and somebody in the background will send you some information on that. I don't want to get into pricing or all that stuff specifically here, but they will contact you with that, and it is a major discount to do that. Okay, so moving on. This part can get tricky depending on how savvy you are with your phone or your device. All right, so I hope you do not need to get your kids or your nephew to help you with how to do some of these things, because if not, you definitely need to do, as I've done in the past, go to YouTube and watch some 10-year-old teach you how to use your device. So that's where people are like, wow, you know all this stuff. I'm like, no, son, a bunch of 10-year-olds did and made a video and included their own image on it while they explain how do I set this up or do these things. So there's a lot of amazing resources out there. So I encourage you to use them and make sure you understand after those are over how to get back to some of these things we're going to talk about. So you must have a DM32 that's Wi-Fi enabled. Some of you may have a DM32 that was not Wi-Fi enabled, but you can do this online. You can call sales at Retrotec or support at retrotec.com, contact them, and you can get a key or a number to enter to turn your DM32 into Wi-Fi. And the reason was that because some people didn't need Wi-Fi, or they didn't think they needed Wi-Fi, and it saved them $300 to get a system or a gauge without that. So we felt that there was a great price structure. If you don't need Wi-Fi, fine, maybe you need it later and save some money now. So if you need to update Wi-Fi, you can do that on any of the DM32s that are out there. Another one that comes up frequently is you cannot use a USB to connect to the gauge in order to use rCloud. So some people have a PC and they're like, well, I clearly use my USB to connect it, to update it and do other stuff. The only way that this works is when it works with a Wi-Fi connection to the gauge. Right, so there is no hardwire availability or Ethernet connection that will allow you to use rCloud with any other device. We will talk about that the gauge, the DM32, can either create a Wi-Fi network or it'll join a Wi-Fi network. So there are lots of options in the gauge, and all of that is able to be either done in the gauge or with the configurator, which is a separate app that you work on a PC. So definitely make sure you understand that you know what kind of device you've got, whether it's 3G or 4G enabled. Maybe it's only a Wi-Fi device. Some people have iPads, but they're actually not able to be connected to the internet without going through Wi-Fi, and understand how those connections happen or how to create a hotspot. So if you're familiar with some of these concepts, make sure you understand how to do it on your device, and you'll be a power user very easily. So we're going to start with the fact that your DM32 can either join a signal or actually create a signal, and what those mean or what that actually comes into play with. Okay. So one of the things you should understand is Wi-Fi is just a signal to communicate between devices. It's not an internet connection. You do not have to have internet in order for Wi-Fi to work. It's kind of like a very powerful Bluetooth. So many of you are familiar with Bluetooth devices, and Bluetooth is not an internet connection either. It's just a really weak Wi-Fi signal. So it actually has a very small signal strength, really designed for headsets or other things, other devices that will be very near each other. So Wi-Fi allows you to separate and still maintain a connection that's much stronger. Depends on your devices, depends on, and the environment you're in, depends on the amount of how far away they both can be from each other. Okay, so let's go through the network settings that are on here. So we're going to tap settings, and then at the very top, we go through a couple pages and you'll see settings, and I can have network. And the goal is you can toggle through this like many other areas on the gauge. If I want to find out what are all my settings, I can actually just toggle through. So it can toggle through from join, create, to disable or wired. Those are some of your options you have when you have a gauge that's Wi-Fi. Obviously, you don't have those options if it's not Wi-Fi. So if you're going to do a join, which means that there's a signal that I'm going to join to, all right, then I need to find out if it's going to be has a password or not, right? And one of the things that can be challenging is I go to join and I can see it up here on the top of my gauge. And then I need to tap the Wi-Fi icon here in the bottom. And what that actually opens up is the network name and whether or not the network is secure, right? So in order to join another signal, let's say I'm going to join the signal from my phone as something I'm going to use as my resource on here. I need to know what what the Wi-Fi is going to be called, and it cannot have a password in order to make this connection in the gauge. If it has a password, I need to use the configurator to enter that password into the gauge. All right, so there's two different things here. If I'm going to connect from the gauge to join something, if it has a password, I need to go to configurator. If it doesn't, I can actually do everything in the gauge. So if there is a network that I can connect to, a lot of times you can have a router or have something similar. I enter the name of that Wi-Fi setting. A little prompt pops up, and you can get to capitals and numbers from the top up there in the right-hand corner. And so here's the difference. So again, if it's considered unsecured or no password, you can do it in the gauge. Otherwise, I need to use the configurator. We are working on a system to change this or allow you to do more of these things either in the gauge or in the app. But right now, a secure network. And the reason is for this is that creating these algorithms and turning on a network that has a password is incredibly powerful. And the gauge just doesn't have enough brain power. A lot of things don't have enough brain power to do that. So that's why we turn back to the PC or another device to do that. Okay, so we're going to go through a series of ways of connecting my tablet or my device and ways to go through that. So one of the things you can also do is you can actually just use the DM32 just to create its own Wi-Fi signal. So I say, okay, it can create a signal. Why don't I just connect my device to the gauge directly? So on my gauge, I can toggle through Wi-Fi create on my network settings, and it will now create a signal. All right, and that signal will be based upon its serial number. All right, and now I can go to my PC or my tablet and now connect to it directly. When you do this, though, that either your tablet is 4G or not 4G, but once I connect directly to something else, I no longer have my internet connection anymore. All right. So what this looks like on my device, whether it's a Surface or a tablet or a PC, is I go to my network connections, I turn Wi-Fi on, and I connect to it. And you can see that this is connected to the gauge at the bottom here, DM32, and that's the serial number. So whatever serial number you have, or if you have a couple, you want to check the back of the gauge, and that's the serial number. That's the one you'll want to connect to. Now I have a direct connection from my gauge to my device, and now I can use rCloud. Again, it's not online, but I can now do all of my testing with the gauge. And then when I'm done with it, I can go back and connect my device another way to be online and upload the data. So some other ways that you can do this is that maybe I have a router. Again, this is no internet connection. I have a device over here that's not 3G or 4G. Maybe it's a Windows tablet that doesn't have automatic connection to 3G or 4G. But I want them to connect together. I can use a router. Again, a router doesn't have to have internet. It's just a Wi-Fi source, kind of like a hotspot, and they can both connect through the router to each other. And once they're both on the router, they're also talking to each other. So I make my gauge join the router, and I make the tablet join the router also. And now they're all able to communicate. If I'm going to do this, I need to make sure my router does not have a password. You can set your router up to have a name, but not actually have a password to make this simple for your where you're at. So on my device, I connect to the router, and I do the same on my gauge. And now I'm able to communicate with rCloud to my gauge. Okay, so another way to do this is to use your phone as a mobile hotspot, or there's also little mobile hotspots that some people own that are kind of like an internet connection. So I can create it's similar to a router, but my phone can create a hotspot. The issue with Apple is that it'll create a hotspot, but it requires a password. So if you want to use your Apple phone as something that does this, then you need to use the configurator and enter all that information into the DM32. And I'm going to come to that and explain how that works. So, but sometimes you can have a hotspot on Android device or a mobile hotspot and take the password off. And again, make this simple connection between the two of them. If your Android is online or your mobile hotspot is online and you're able to make a direct connection, then I'm able to do everything through the online connection that I have. So my internet connection on the hotspot or my phone can serve as the connections that I need to do all of these interface in terms of connecting to the gauge, run the actual app, run all the tests, and upload the data can all be done through your phone or a mobile hotspot. Okay, so now we're going to talk about if your device is a 3G or 4G capable device, and if it's online. And if your device has the ability to have 3G, 4G, and make an internet connection, it also can create a hotspot, right? Some allow you to create hotspots with or without again, a password. So that's one of your options here is I can actually get my DM32 to join my hotspot from my device. And we think this will be the most common way that a lot of things are used. So this device over on the left side, clearly right now is a tablet. In the future, it could be your phone. It could be a variety of things that are internet already savvy, already geolocating, and can create a hotspot. And then the next thing you do is get your gauge to join this hotspot, and then you're up and running, and it'd be the most common way that things are used. So we talked about that in order to use join, to join a Wi-Fi network that has the password, you must make sure you're using the configurator. The configurator is something, if you have the DM32, you should be using regularly already, because the configurator makes sure that your gauge is up to date and updates all of your firmware that's in the gauge. So this is something we recommend you at least check once a month, and make sure that your firmware is correct. And we're going to show you how to use the same app in order to use the internet connections, or the internet way of setting up your network. Okay, so if you have not used Configurator before, download the Configurator, restart the computer, open Configurator, and the DM32 should be off, right? And even if this as you normally connect the configurator, I recommend you open up the configurator, have your DM32 off, and then make your USB connections. Usually the configurator always finds it. A lot of these issues are dealing with drivers with PC and some of the challenges that have there. So if you could not find it, you unplugged it, turned your gauge off, and did it again, you may have to restart your PC. It's just one of those challenges that goes along with drivers. So usually it will find your gauge if you follow that method of having the gauge off and plug it in, and it'll automatically come on when you plug it in, and it'll be found. And you can see in the upper left corner, there's a little blue area. It'll show you the gauge that's connected. And normally this is set up to tell you whether or not you need to install new firmware. So if it says install new firmware, you should do that first. Update your firmware, make sure everything is up to date on your gauge. And then after that's done, you can reconnect it and select the network icon in the bottom of the configurator application. So when this comes up, these are the conditions that I'm after. All right. So what I'm after is I'm going to hit join. I'm going to enter the network name. Whatever the network is the Wi-Fi, and it is case sensitive. The reason we're doing this is because it is a secure network, and I want to enter the exact password as it would appear. That's also case sensitive. And then once I've done all that, I can hit save, and it will tell me that it's saved to the gauge. And then now I can actually connect the gauge to this secure router, this my phone, whatever it is, it has the password. And again, we're trying to overcome this challenge of having to use your PC to do this. But do remember that if you decide to join something else, that information is lost. Also something that we were trying to upgrade with the gauge. So if you join one and then join another, you have to go back and re-enter that information through the configurator if it has a password. So if you have any questions, again, features, issues, challenges, problems, this is the email to include. And again, give us some basic information that's on there so we know how to help you. I thought it might go a little longer, but we finished in just over an hour. I thought it might be a 90-minute webinar. So for those of you that have more time, I'd gladly answer your questions. The one thing that I did not mention or talk about but alluded to is what's next for rCloud. Our goal is that anything that you measure with the gauge will be able to be documented and grabbed through rCloud, which means if you're doing zonal pressure diagnostics, if you're doing testing exhaust fans and you're using the gauge for that, it's our goal to see if there's another way to come up with a flow hood that actually would be able to work with the DM32 gauge. So anything that could move through the gauge, that for instance, another one would be the CAS. If you're able to, if you want to measure the combustion appliance zone, all that should be able to be captured through rCloud and documented in the same way. So that's the ultimate goal of rCloud, is to capture anything that you're trying to do diagnostics on at the house, and be able to upload that and share that information just like you would a blower door or duct test. if you have suggestions or other things you'd like to do or be a part of the beta development as we add those features, please don't hesitate to reach out. And yes, somebody said don't forget the PDF. So we are may already have that online. I'm not sure if we have it in the app, but those are things that we're doing on how to create a PDF of your report. So is any other features you're looking for or think would be a good idea, or how to make it the user face more interactive or more user friendly? Don't hesitate to reach out and give us your feedback. Any other questions, comments? Is this something that, let me ask the loaded gun question. So does anybody feel that this is something that will be beneficial for you in your daily activities or how you're actually doing your testing? So someone said about that some things are online. So your account online is under, whoever owns that account is under their control. So that doesn't mean that anybody can see this information. It's up to you to decide what you share and who you share it with. So you may decide that, okay, I have this test and I need to share it with this builder, and you can do so. Otherwise, all other data, all other test compliance reports are all considered private unless you decide to share them, either access with your account. So, for instance, that example is, let's say you're doing a lot of HERS ratings and you are work closely with a provider, that you can actually give somebody viewing rights to your test. So they can go on and view your test if you want, but they cannot alter the data or change your account or do anything. Otherwise, any of your test reports are all considered under your control and your domain, and whether or not they're shared with whoever you decide to do that with. And someone, a couple great comments here, and one is that it will provide validity to the homeowner in a professional manner. And Scott, that's a great comment. That's really one of the things that I felt that our industry needed, was to get rid of the pencil and paper or the numbers, or if anybody's out there that can remember driving home and not knowing, what your results were, or you wrote it down, or you left it at the client's house, or all the other things that we've done earlier in our career, or just by accident later in our career, where we don't have the data, or I got to go back and retest, or I got to go back and find that piece of paper, or whatever it was. Some people do pictures of screenshots, which I did forever after that happened on my first day. But again, those things can be altered or don't provide ultimate validity as to what you did. So again, this is rCloud, and most people, when we developed it, we kind of forgot that almost everybody has a PC. I know there's a few Mac users out there, but most people have access to a PC to do this kind of in terms of access or testing if you want to try it out. And it will only be a matter of months before you'll be able to use it on any of your Apple or Android devices. And we feel this is going to be an exciting new change in the future of how people actually gather their data. All right, that's a wrap. Enjoy your day, everybody, and make it safe. We'll catch you in 2 days or in July. Thanks again.